Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host and contributor to Football Night in America. We were just talking about the Justin Jefferson fumble through the end zone. Where do you stand on this? And is there any chance that a standalone game moment like this could change the rule at any point?
I hate the rule. It's a reflection of an outdated approach toward the sanctity of the end zone. You know, there was a time where an incomplete pass, if it landed in the end zone, resulted in a touchback for the defense. That has changed now. It's just unfair. The idea that the defense did nothing to recover the football. And if the fumble had gone out of bounds at the 1 millimeter line, it's the offense's ball at the spot of the fumble. But if it trickles across the front of the goal line, it suddenly is awarded to the defense, 1st and 10 at the 20. At a minimum, put the ball at the spot of the fumble. Why do you get it at the 20? None of it makes any sense to me. And it will never change unless and until it happens in a Super Bowl at a key moment. Because, Dan, here's what will happen. After last night, we'll huff and puff about it today, and then here comes a bunch of bright, shiny objects on Sunday, and we forget about it. And then whatever happens in those games, we'll complain about it. And then Monday, bright, shiny object. And then Thursday, bright, shiny object. It takes the last game of the year with a big audience of casual fans who, when they learn of this rule, will say, what the hell is that? Well, that makes no sense. That's the kind of outcry it's going to take. Because, Dan, one thing I've learned over the years, teams that get burned by a rule like this, they don't complain all that much about it because they think the next time it's going to help us. And that's the reality with this rule. It's a 50-50 thing. Everybody who gets burned by it, well, somebody else gets helped by it. And you think over time, it's all going to even out. So we're fine with it until somebody loses a Super Bowl over it.
Okay, what would be your solution?
Put the ball at the spot of the fumble. Offense gets it. It should be no different than if it goes out of bounds at the 1-inch line. It goes to the offense at the spot of the fumble. What has the defense done to justify possession? Again, it reflects an outdated view of some sort of sanctity of the end zone and it's enemy territory. And if you lose possession of the ball in our territory, we get the ball. I don't like it. I don't think it reflects the modern approach to offense and scoring. And it just seems unfair to award the ball to the other team when they have done nothing to recover possession of the ball.
All right. You're talking about modern offenses, the quarterback sneak with the Eagles that I think that was up for debate in the offseason. The big push that they're able to do that I don't know if anybody else has mastered this quite like the Eagles have, but then not many teams have an offensive line like the Eagles have. Why are they allowing this to continue?
This one's bizarre to me, Dan, and I got to take you back 17 years. Prior to 2006, it was against the rules to push a runner from behind to assist him or pull the runner. Around 2006, they realized, you know what? We never throw the flag for assisting the runner. And we used to see it downfield. Guys fighting for a first down. Here comes the offensive line, boom, and pushes him past the yellow line. They were never calling the foul, so they took it out of the rule book. And it took a generation almost for a team to look at it and say, you know what? We can incorporate that into our offense. If you're allowed to push the runner, let's push him from the snap. And the Eagles have perfected it. There was debate in the offseason about getting rid of it. I'm surprised they didn't muster enough votes to do it because this isn't one of those rules that benefits everyone at some point. This is one that's benefiting one team that is willing to constantly put its quarterback in harm's way with this play. And eventually, maybe he gets injured during that play. But it's just ugly. It's not something that, there's no drama to it. It's automatic. I think the NFL is looking for moments of greater drama and uncertainty. When they line up like that, they're going to convert it. No one has an answer for it. So I think it was close last year. And if it continues this year, it should be the last year that it's in the game.
Andrew Luck retired 4 years ago saying he needed to, quote, remove himself from football. Well, he's back. He's on the field, and he's a coach at Palo Alto High School, right across from where he played his college ball. I saw that you had an article on Pro Football Talk where could the Jets reach out to Andrew Luck and at least gauge interest? Now, is that would be tampering? So would they have to go through the Colts to then ask about Andrew Luck to get permission? Is that how it works?
Yeah, they'd have to call the Colts and get permission to talk to Andrew Luck. And if they were going to desire to sign Andrew Luck, and if he was willing to come back and play, they'd have to do a trade with the Colts before they acquire him. And we know that because There was a story earlier this year that in 2022, when the Commanders were turning every stone looking for a quarterback and ultimately found Carson Wentz, they reached out to Andrew Luck, and Jim Irsay went to Twitter and said, anybody who contacts Andrew Luck without our permission is committing a violation of the tampering rules. So we're already on notice. Now, the reality is, I was told by someone last night, Dan Marino is more likely to come back at this point than Andrew Luck. So it's all academic. It's not going to happen. And I think the Jets are all in with Zach Wilson. They're not looking for someone to come in and supplant Wilson, at least not yet. They're looking for a backup to come in and be an understudy to Zach Wilson. They're in for now with the plan that Wilson is the guy, and let's see what happens.
We're talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live, co-host with Chris Simpson. Who's the backup for the Jets?
Tim Boyle.
Okay.
Right now, there's only one quarterback on the active roster. They'll bring Boyle up from the practice squad for Sunday's game, and I assume maybe next week they'll do something. They tried to sign Brett Rippon off the Rams practice squad. He decided to sign with the Rams active roster. He was with Nathaniel Hackett in Denver last year. Hackett, obviously now the Jets offensive coordinator. So that's the kind of guy they're looking for. They want to rally around Wilson. And why shouldn't they? I mean, I saw the guy get criticized for how he played on Monday night. They beat the Bills. He came into the worst possible situation you could imagine. 4 snaps into the season. Aaron Rodgers is done. Hey, kid, grab your helmet and get your ass out there. And he went out there and he won the game.
Can you win a Super Bowl with Zach Wilson?
Can you? Yes, if your defense is as good as some of the members of the Jets defense seem to think it is. If it's 2,000 Ravens, 2,002 Bucks, 85 Bears, it's almost sacrilegious to even say that, but DJ Reed said it not that long ago. And you've got Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook. If you construct a game plan week in and week out that focuses on what Zach Wilson can do, and don't expect him to do too much, don't expect him to be the hero, you could win enough games that, maybe you thread a needle or two and you get lucky and you could get there and win it. It's in this year's AFC, I think it takes a great quarterback to win in the playoffs. And it's going to take great quarterback play, a big throw in a big spot to win those games.
And do you think Zach Wilson can do that?
Well, let's fast forward to the postseason. I mean, if they get there, he presumably will build more confidence. He will get better with good experience. They win games. It becomes kind of an avalanche. So maybe he's a guy who by the time they get to the playoffs, he can perform like the guy everyone thought he was going to be. Every time there's a quarterback bust, the team gets accused of reaching. Nobody was saying Zach Wilson shouldn't have been the second overall pick in the draft. It was a given. It was Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. Remember when the 49ers traded up, we knew the first 2 guys off the board, Lawrence, Wilson, and then the 49ers had their pick of the rest. So this wasn't some crazy outside the box thing. Wilson was regarded as the number 2 talent in the 2021 draft. And now he gets a reset. He gets a chance to start over and build some confidence. So by the time we get to January, if they make it, maybe he will be good enough to make that big throw. He's got the physical skills to do it.
Okay. If you're the Rams or the Vikings and the Jets reached out, Matthew Stafford, that contract, you probably couldn't bring him in. Could you bring in Kirk Cousins? These are 2 teams that probably aren't going to be playoff bound. If they are, they're going to be on the periphery. But if you're the Jets, it's about winning a Super Bowl. You could upgrade with Stafford and or Kirk Cousins. Could you see that happening?
Well, remember when the Vikings lost Teddy Bridgewater in late August of 2016 and they thought they had a team that could contend? They gave a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick to the Eagles for Sam Bradford. It didn't work out, but they felt compelled to do it. So if the Jets were going to go that route, the Rams are out of the question at this point, even though the Jets had Stafford as their plan B to Aaron Rodgers. Once Stafford had like a $57 million payment become guaranteed, the Rams can't trade him now because next year they would take a $55.5 million dead cap charge if they trade him now. No acceleration against the cap now, but next year, how do you put a team on the field when you got $55.5 million under Matthew Stafford's name? With Cousins, play it out a few weeks. Vikings lose to the Chargers next week, let's say. Let's say they go to Carolina and lay an egg, and then the Chiefs come to town. I mean, you get to 0-4, 0-5, 1-5, 2-6, trade deadline the Tuesday after week 8. I mean, the problem is, are you really going to be in position to throw in the towel on the season if you're the Vikings, even if you're 1-7 through 8 games? It's too early. Mm-hmm. And Nick Mullins is your backup quarterback, unless they they start talking up Jaron Hall, the rookie from BYU, and they're like, hey, he's ready to go, and we want to see what he can do, and we want to evaluate him. But I think for now, the Jets want to make it work with Zach Wilson. Also, the Jets' first 2 draft picks for 2024 are tied up in this Rodgers deal. It's a conditional second-round, first-round pick. They can't trade either of those picks, even though it's only going to be the second-round pick at the end of the day. Those 2 picks are frozen, so they'd have to come up with some other way to get a Kirk Cousins or a Matthew Stafford.
The most winish game this weekend. Must winish.
You know, I want to say that there is no must-win game week 2, but that's a cop-out. We got to pick one of them. I think the Bills are under the most pressure because I've been saying for the past few weeks, the Bills to me feel like, you know, that game Jenga, when you're about 20 moves into it and every plank that you move, it just starts doing this. I feel like the Bills are just doing this, and it's just a matter of time before it all falls down. This whole Josh Allen thing with all these turnovers, like, do they not have anyone, Dan, that can go to him on the sideline in the middle of a game and say, calm down, here's what we need to do. Here's the playbook. There is no play in here that results in 21 points with one throw of the ball. We've got to run the offense the way it's designed. You can't go out there and be a hero. I know you're frustrated that we're not beating the Jets by 30 points, even with Aaron Rodgers out. I know, but we got to run the offense. Ken Dorsey is not the guy to do it. We saw how excitable he is. Remember after the loss to the Dolphins last year, and he's throwing stuff around in the booth. And Sean McDermott's running the defense this year. He's calling the plays defensively. So he can't say, hey, timeout, somebody else call the plays. I got to go talk to the quarterback and get his mind right. The problem is he tries to do too much. And we see athletes do this from time to time, where they have so much faith in their abilities, they try to do more than they can. And it gets them into trouble, and they get desperate, and they can't get out of it. And if they lose to the Raiders, and Chris Sims picked the Raiders to beat the Bills, gutsy move, week 2. If the Raiders beat the Bills this weekend, they got a real problem in Buffalo.
Before I let you go, the Deion Sanders bandwagon, 2 games into his Colorado career, and you already have people like Michael Irvin saying he could be successful as the next Dallas Cowboys head coach. You, I think, are on the Deion Sanders bandwagon, aren't you? Could he be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
I would hire him to be the head coach of an NFL team if I was the owner and I was looking for a coach. Look, at the end of the day, and people say, oh, that style won't work on NFL players. Baloney. When I hear Deion Sanders speaking to his team, I'm 58 years old. I want to get up and run into the wall. Now, I won't run through the wall. I'll bounce off of it. But if it motivates me, it's going to motivate football. I mean, we all have a desire, Dan, to have someone reach into us and press that button that makes us go out and be great. And that's what Deion has. And when you listen to him, and I don't know if you saw the clip from a few weeks ago that the Cardinals put out there of their new coach, Jonathan Gannon, meeting with the team. How did you get here? Did you drive or take the bus? What the hell is that? Like, Deion would work in the NFL. And I think that they should be clamoring now. When you consider he can get it done, and look at all the attention and buzz, and you're going to get primetime games, and you're going to be the focal point of so much attention. That's what these teams want to do. Yeah, they'd like to win, but you also want to sell a lot of merch. You want people to be excited. You want your team to be one of the hot teams. And whoever would go out and hire Deion Sanders would be the hot team going into that season. I think any smart owner needs to be thinking about making a move for Deion Sanders right now.
But if you're Deion, do you want to work under Jerry Jones when you know that Jerry wants to be the coach, owner, quarterback, and general manager?
Well, that's part of the problem. And look, Deion would have options. I don't know. I think the Cardinals are tanking now. Are they too inept to properly tank? We'll see. I think they'd like to get Caleb Williams. And if I'm Caleb Williams and Jonathan Gannon is the coach of the Cardinals, I say no thank you. If I'm Caleb Williams and they brought in Deion Sanders to be the coach of the Cardinals, I'm thinking maybe the Cardinals are figuring out what it takes to be successful in the NFL, and I'll go play for them.
But does Deion maybe want to go where his son is going to be the quarterback? Does he? If I ask Deion, I'd have to wait till USC, Colorado, who is going to be a better pro, Caleb Williams or your son?
That's part of all the things to be determined as the season unfolds. But look, it's the biggest story in football. I was stunned last week, Dan, when I think it was BetMGM reported that there was more bets placed on the Colorado game than any of the remaining NFL games for week 1. And that rarely happens. And it's usually like Michigan, Ohio State. It was Colorado, Nebraska, for crying out loud. So this guy is a magnet for attention. He's got that natural charisma. He knows how to motivate players. And I think he knows how to win. We're seeing it 1 week at a time. And every week there's going to be some idiot that says something that gives him low-hanging fruit he can use to motivate his players.
No motivation from this segment by you because
no, I'm all in. Hey, I like great stories. People ask me, what do you root for? I root for great stories, and it would be a great story to have Deion Sanders as an NFL head coach.
Did you send flowers to Aaron Rodgers?
Hey, I don't know if you've heard. Hard Knocks worked on me. I've turned around on Aaron Rodgers. I like Aaron Rodgers now. I like this guy who's aware that his football career is pulling into the station and he's savoring every moment. He's a sympathetic figure to me now. I feel awful for him. I was all in with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. I had changed my tune. So maybe I should. Maybe I should send him some flowers.
This will cheer him up right here.
Oh, I'm sure it will.
Yes, it will.
I'm sure he cares. I'm sure it makes him feel better.
Yes.
It probably makes him feel worse to think that he's actually changed my mind. But I hope he comes back next year, and I hope he plays great next year. And it really is sad that it happened for the game, for him, for the Jets, for everybody. We've been deprived. Whoop, there goes my microphone, of what would have been a really great season. And hopefully he'll be back next year.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great weekend.
See you, Dan.
All right, Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. He's there with Chris Sims Monday through Friday, precedes our show.